All right, here we are, part two, Jess.
Are we live?
We are live, and basically, this is just an exercise in instigating Jonathan Peugeot.
Oh, good. I'm sure he'll pay us some attention.
It's just like these are things you shouldn't be talking about. Check. Let's do a series of videos
Maybe we
on it.
should talk about that a little bit.
So you were having some more thoughts. I feel like okay, first question, you edited our first talk, but you clipped a bunch. I mean, you trimmed a bunch out, obviously,
Yeah, I
right?
cut some of my because like I was trying to summarize Jonathan Peugeot, and I was like, I'm just gonna put his clip in there because it's like as long as my summarization, and it was just the clip rather than me trying to stumble through. Because I was like,
Yeah.
toward the end of my explanation, I was like, oh yeah, now I kind of remember what it was about.
Your your little edit. I mean, I showed it to my family. They don't think it's as funny as I do, but I think it was fantastic of just Peugeot in Chicago. Oh my gosh. So wonderful. Um it's really great. But yeah, so I want you to just talk and recap some of the things you were trying to get at. I think in our first talk, didn't I bring up Sam and Gavin as an illustration of this too? I can't
Mm,
remember.
I think it was in your live stream this weekend.
Oh, maybe
It
I
wasn't an
can't
art.
remember where I'm talking about anything. Anyhow, who cares? That's neither here nor there.
Yeah, I think you brought that up, but I don't know what it was.
Okay.
Um, well, I think I was talking to you about, I forget the two things. One was transcendent mind and paradigmatic mind, P
Mm-hmm.
mind.
P mind.
And then the other thing was something a little bit more on topic because I did show the little Jordan Hall small clip. We still need to
Mm-hmm.
do like we need to clip it eventually and then make a conversation just about that. But
Yeah.
then the other thing was, what was the other thing that I messaged you this morning?
I don't know. I meant to re-listen to it, but I've been too distracted by other things. Well, so we were talking about
Oh, it was non-duality and
awe.
oh yeah, that's it. So it's the what senses do we use? Um, and it has to do with that Lewis quote, which was, um, where is it? Reason is the organ of truth, and imagination is the organ of meaning.
So good. Great stuff.
So so we have senses for rationality. So reason, um, and I would, our like sense of hearing is kind of like linear. We even and when we're reading something, so all sort of language is in a linear mode. Maybe we can just say that it can, you can make linear arguments when you're doing reason and stuff, and you're trying to get to some sort of truth claim, propositional stuff, even procedural stuff, that you're outlining systems and the way things are. You want logical connections between things. You're not making giant leaps, or you're not jumping over and comparing, you know, things that are too wildly separate from each other without outlining, the connection between them. So that's like one sense. I'll just call it the sense of reason for now, using Lewis's term. But then there's a sense which so I would say with the sense of reason, we are in duality.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is my first statement. Sense of reason, we're in duality. We're talking about things. So when we mention something, there's also something we're not mentioning. And then when we talk about them both, we talk about them as separate objects, all that stuff. We're in a dual universe. But with kind of what Jordan Hall was talking about with transcendent mind, and in the Lewis quote, he talks about imagination. Jordan Hall mentions intuition. There's also a sense of awe. There's a sense of, I'm kind of spitballing here, a sense of worship, a sense of fear, a sense of, sort of these overwhelming bodily feelings that we have, that, when you approach something and it makes you cry or it makes you laugh or something, we're having a bodily reaction that's deeper than um, something at the level of reason.
Deeper
So
than ideas, man.
yeah, it could be Luke's mic is super low. Bring up your.
Uh, how do I do that? Gain?
Yeah, it'd just be your gain.
Sorry, Enchanted Reformer. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better on my end too. Okay, so um, reason you're in dualisms, you're in duality, but I think with the sense of imagination, of imagination, intuition, beauty, awe, fear, it's actually you're out of duality and you're into a non-dual experience. So um, so I just say that
Yeah.
to say that we have senses for both paradigms. We have a sense for the paradigm of duality, which in the modern world we kind of like live in and we operate in, because we can get a lot of stuff done. We can chop things up and tick it, doing that with the rational. But
Mm-hmm.
the sense of awe, the sense of worship, the sense of beauty, using our imagination, our intuition, we're actually engaging a non-dual aspect. But that's how we have to engage it. We have to engage it with those senses inside of us. And well, that's my proposal. Is we have these ways to engage duality, and we also have the ways to engage non-dualism, non-duality. Thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, that's very clear. I mean, I think it's true. That's almost just like when you're in a flow state. Oh, what was that? Oh, I have something that's perfect for this that I read recently. What was it? Oof.
Hi,
It was
Jason. Hi, Chad.
yeah, just say hi to
Hi,
people.
everyone. Hi, Mandy. Hi.
I feel like
This is McGilchrist 101, but it's talking
it
about in
is.
slightly different terms. Well, it's talking about the experience of it rather than the theory of it.
I feel like this is something. Oh no. Was it? Dang it. It was an event. It was talking about an event and memory and man. So essentially what they were saying is like when you I hope I can remember where that was from because it's perfect for the situation, but it's some longer quote. I don't think it was uh Jeff reading from Lewis because he was reading Surprised by Joy and he was thinking of me as some tag within that. But it was essentially like if you think about your time is one of those nebulous weird things because if you think about events in your time or in your life, it's almost as if the mundane moments of the linear progression of your time almost have no time at all. They're ephemeral and they just like disappear. But every once in a while, there's a significant moment in time that's connected into your memory that is almost timeless because it sticks with you and it's a powerful event that like seems to last forever because it's like this event that just becomes part of you, and and that's a little bit at what you're getting at. Like we apprehend those things through I think awe and flow and inspiration and memory because those are the meaningful events of our lives. The events that aren't meaningful of your life, you don't remember at all. It's as if they never occurred because they have no significance for you. They have no salience to you. They're not even like how many events have happened in your life that you have no memory of? Like most of them.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I'm thinking of just like brushing my teeth. I kind of
Yeah.
remember brushing my teeth yesterday. Um,
But you
but
won't in a year.
yeah, but I can also really clearly imagine my childhood bathroom where I
Mm-hmm.
brushed my teeth. Like it's almost like it's very vivid because that was, but I can't remember like a specific instance when I brushed my teeth. So it's almost like this sort of the memory I have is sort of a meta memory of brushing my teeth as a child.
Yeah. Ah, I'm so annoyed that I can't remember this thing. This is one of those things that I just don't have great callback for.
But see, like even the mundane kind of ends up coalescing into something more than just the mundane.
Oh, dude, was it Almond Tree? Was it your Novalis quote? Is that what it was? I bet it was, you little. So good you're here. What was it? Okay, that's in YouTube. And that's on our last video, I think. Just wait. If this is it, I'm gonna be very happy.
She's not wired like me where she's
Nope, shut up, Luke. On YouTube.
Hey, let's show a clip from our conversation the other day, Luke.
No, this is not it. Damn it. Okay, never mind. Okay, the other thing that I was trying to say though, and we don't have to go here. It's something that this is one of those things though that for me is I think I'm right about this, but this is one of those things that I talk about that I think people just don't understand what the hell I'm saying, and I think it's because, and this sounds like I don't know what it would be, I don't think it's proud or arrogant thing to say, but it's like a prophetic thing to say. I can foresee a mode of consciousness where people relate to propositional language in a way that is timeless, that isn't linear. And the way I would illustrate that is like, I don't know how this relates to the medium as the message, but like this, right? So like arrival and the tetrapod language, because it's circular and because the way that it's formed, this is like the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, that the way in which the language manifests to you shapes your consciousness. And so because in tetrapod, this fictional language of these alien species, because you don't read it linearly, you read it all at once. It's one thing. It's a unity of multiplicity, but clearly, explicitly. It can't be anything but that. And nothing makes sense without the whole. What I would argue is that's the way our language is too, but because of our current consciousness, and because we so quickly map our analysis to our existential phenomenological apprehension of our language, we think we're dissecting the language one by one by one by one by one, but we're not. Like that's a narrative that we're so quickly imposing upon our understanding of the text that we think it's the reality when it isn't. But I do think we're going to get to the point where we not only are cognizant of that, but we have a more full participation of that. And what that will do will be the end of ideology, essentially. Because you're just not going to be able to be ideological. And it won't be necessarily be the end of tribalism, but it will be the end of ideological tribalism. But that's kind of an aside.
Yeah, I wonder if even tribalism is one of those things that is sort of the tribalism is one of those things that is meaningful, like your people fighting against another people, like that's very sort of, it's not clear to me that necessarily is not, that's not an outgrowth of reason and rationality. That tribalism is something kind of deep. That, well, to make the counter argument, like that's why we want to be reasonable, is because we don't want to fall into these sort of, let's just say, like deep evolutionary ruts that we can, slip into. And the problem that ideology poses is that it's basically rational constructs that enables you to fall in those ruts anyway.
Right. Yes.
So
Yeah.
what's
That's
the
like, it
yeah,
makes me think
we thought
of,
rationality was going to help us like avoid these ruts and be able to find common ground, humanity, we all love each other, whatever. And then all of a sudden we found these ideologies kind of build out of the rational that enables us to fall into those ruts anyway.
right, which is that's that quote that I love, that the last remaining acceptable form of bigotry is against those with whom you disagree. Like that's what that is. That's the last remaining acceptable form of tribalism. Because if you go, and it makes me think of Richard Rowland and his whatever, that one video with Peugeot where he talks about the rise of nationalism. Because prior to the rise of modern nation states, that's all you had was ethnic tribal identity. And then you got national identity, which transcended tribal identity. And then America is kind of the quintessential example of that. Is we're not centered around, out of the many one, right? We're not centered around tribe or nation or ethnicity. All the civil rights stuff we're centered around ideas, right? The Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the epitome of that, which is liberalism. But then that has become the new monolith, and if you're outside of that, you're excluded. And so I would argue we don't want to be reasonable. We want to be loving. Like,
Mm-hmm.
love is the thing that includes all others.
Yeah, but isn't that what the holding compassion up for as the highest value? Isn't that what those guys are doing? Where they're aiming at?
Yeah, but they don't include the compassionless.
Yeah, for sure. Like that
And I
they
think you should.
hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's where, like, those are conversations we've had in, like, the TLC. Is I think, like, even within the TLC, which we're creating this space for open dialogue, you also need to include the people that don't want to have open dialogue.
Yeah, but um I still think like I'm going to be a little bit brash, but this sounds like the same sort of argument that the guys are like, everyone just needs to do ayahuasca or mushrooms, and then everything will be solved because everyone will have this experience and this openness, and then world peace. And I don't think that's the case.
Well, um,
I think we're in like we're in an actual problem. Like it's not like so if we have um either our reason or our I don't know how to divide reason and intuition or something. We'll just make those the two categories. It's not like if we go up into reason, we got ideology, that's a problem. But if we go down into just our intuition, we're still liable to fall into tribalism and all that stuff. Like I don't see how that. And then I know what you're saying, like when you're like, let's be loving, so
mhm.
including loving your enemies. But that's neither of these sort of categories. And um, well, I think we're at like a real I think we're at a real crossroads and a real problem. And I think the way through is narrow, and it probably is this loving, like you have to love. But we have to avoid basically the pitfalls of the pre-modern past, which was warring, tribal-ish, feudal states, whatever. And then we also have to avoid now the modern problem, which is rational ideologies that breaks us up in those then we end up fighting anyway. But now we have tanks instead of spears and bows and arrows.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I don't know. Well, what I was thinking about, and I don't know if it's just because I'm talking to you, but it always Whenever I'm talking to you, I'm just like, Job, 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 Job. Um, and so in our first conversation, that's one of the comments that we got was from our good friend Phlebas, who, see, like, for example, like a lot of these guys, I mean, Phlebas is a great guy, MJ is a great guy, Anselman is a great guy. Like, that's the thing that I'm talking about. These kinds of guys who uh, very often offer criticism to me. Um, like, I don't want to get rid of these guys. I think they're fantastic. I think they're needed. I think that's
Mhm.
good because I don't want just like ideological silos. I want people that are criticizing and critiquing. I mean, that's part of my canonize the heretics, whatever the TLC heretics are. I mean, that would probably be the TLC heretic, right? Is the one who's just like, no openness, like shut down, more boundaries.
Mhm.
The ones who want to kick out the heretics are kind of the TLC heretics, and I want to include those guys. And so, but Phlebas said his comment was, uh, what did he say? He said no. Who was right? He said, yeah, Peugeot was right. Silence is the answer. But what's funny is like I can play the dualistic game, and I was just like, but why weren't you silent? You know, why did you bring that up then? Because you can always play that game. People do it with me all the time when it's like the standard Christian apologetic move. It's like or what people will do when I talk about propositional tyranny and the proposition of and the problem with propositions and propositionalism and confessionalism, and they'll be like, but we need propositions, and I'm like, sure, I didn't say we didn't.
Yeah, so this is like where the Jordan Hall thing comes in, I think is helpful because he talks about the paradigmatic mind and then the transcendent mind. And so like paradigmatic is like attached to culture and sort of a time and place, and it needs to be updated and revitalized and stuff. It kind of deals with
Mm-hmm.
specifics of whatever's happening, and over time it gets a little too strict or a little too old, or like it needs updating somehow. So you got to go into transcendent mind, which would be what we were talking about earlier, and imagination, intuition, awe, and then being able to reframe things to have a new paradigm or an updated one or refreshed or however you want to say it. And so, but then he said that basically times are changing so fast that we have to go back and forth between these modes too quickly. Like it used to happen let's say every 250 years, you'd have to have a major shift in order to do this change. But now, like, we got to change every 5 years, 2 years, whatever, every day. I don't know how fast, like, the technology is just like speeding this up. And what he says is that um, he uses that example of rhythm turning into tone.
Yeah.
So you have this
Yep.
rhythm of tick, 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 tick. But if the speed gets fast enough, it goes,
Yeah. Yep.
and now you're in zzz mode instead of either one of those modes. And then what is that? Um, I I don't know. Like that maybe that's the mode of, being perfect, like almond trees, like Jason's saying here, or or correct loving. But when I imagine it, what that mode is like, it is basically just like you're just totally present in the moment, and you're not you're almost you have to trust yourself, and you have to be such a person that you're acting in the right way, but you have no time to think. It's just like moving. And then you have to be a type of person in order to do that correctly. And you have to like
Yeah.
that has to be built in you, and you have to be initiated into it. Like it's not something that you can do on your own, like Uberman or whatever. It's something also that you're reliant on a bunch of other people about. Um, and then you can sort of go into it, and it's just improvisation, and there's no rules. I don't
Yeah.
know what else to.
It's like, yeah. Well, the two thoughts I had are thinking ahead of your head and then blue like jazz, man. It's just jazzing it up.
Yeah.
When you flatline.
Yeah, it's like beep, 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 beep.
You know what? Exactly. That's Job, and that's
Yeah.
also becoming truly human right there. When you flatline,
Yeah.
behold the human being. Thank you, Hezi, for that brilliant Christian illustration. Uh, um, do you want to play this section of paradigmatic versus
I don't have it
transcendent?
pulled up. Do
I
you have?
do.
Yeah, play it.
Okay.
I
Let's
might
do
have to
it.
go here in just a minute, so I may have to rush off.
Okay. Are we seeing? Here we go. I'm gonna play it. Can tell me if you can hear it.
To another niche, and usually over a period of generations. And that's historically, and I mean anthropologically, that's how we do it. Obviously, in the context where things are changing more and more rapidly, that approach becomes very challenging. It doesn't work. This is kind of like the generation gap, the 20th century. The fact that you would have a paradigmatic world in your grandfather's life that is so different from your life that the rate of transmission between the two starts having discontinuities and aporias between them and become increasingly difficult to cross communicate.
Yeah.
Of course, as the curve gets steeper, the way my friend Josh Brill taught me to think about it, this is really quite a beautiful metaphor. And I have to be careful not to steal it because it's so nice. In music, if I have rhythm, let's just start with beat. I just beat, do, 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 right? I can increase the rate of that beat so it goes faster. As I continue to increase it, it's moving from a quantitative increase, BPM going up. There's a bend where it becomes qualitative. It becomes tone. Rhythm converts to tone. Qualitative, the introduction of the qualitative in the quantitative is a tremendously powerful thing to think about. You're actually having a modal shift.
Yeah.
Now, technically, by the way, you can always go back and say, yeah, that's actually 14,440 BPM. But the phenomenological distinction between hearing it as rhythm and noticing that there's an emergence of something called tone is significant. Right? It's actually the emergence of a new layer of experience. Same thing happens here. Right? As the pace of change increases past a certain threshold, you don't go from paradigmatic mind, transcendent mind, paradigmatic mind, transcendent mind, paradigmatic mind, transcendent mind, because you just can't. A whole new structure emerges, which is centered on transcendent mind and has the ability to bespoke, produce minimum viable paradigmatic constructs when necessary in relationship with a particular context, but is ultimately grounded in transcendent mind. That's the ultimately the game B transition. End of digression, by the way.
There it is, huh? Wow. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, I wanted. I'm supposed to talk to him, and I want to ask him about this because he talks about how it's centered now on transcendent mind, and I guess in the old model it's centered on the paradigmatic, and you only went to transcendent to update and refresh. But now you have to have a center on. So I don't know quite what he means by that.
I think he means what I mean by iconic thinking. I think that, I mean, truly,
Yeah,
I think
maybe.
that's what he means. Which is that because that's how people think of it. When people think about a paradigm shift, like that's what that is, right? It's an oscillation. But what if you're just, and you're like, there's no more paradigm shift. You're just in transcendent mind.
Yeah.
Like Beck said, coming at you 1,000 beats per minute.
Well, let me bring in the other thing that I was talking to you about, just so everyone can hear it, which is in Job. This is how I'm thinking about it right now. I don't know if this is right, but you have Job in at the very beginning. He's in a paradigm, and it's the paradigm of, do good things will happen. Do evil, you'll be punished. And he's doing all the right things, and he's blessed. So he's in that paradigm. But it also includes the paradigm, which I'm calling like the Proverbs paradigm, but it also includes Ecclesiastes, which is like time and chance happens to us all. Like we're not guaranteed anything. So like when the disasters fall upon him, he says, the Lord gives, the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. So he's not like, I deserved all that. I was doing the right. Like he is like, God is freely given. God is freely taken, blessed be his name. So that's all included in that paradigm, which is a pretty, serious and sophisticated paradigm. And this is so then the friends come along, and that's the paradigm they're defending. But what I think happens is Job falls into transcendent mind, and I say word fall because it's a it's a fall, and it's not like this stoic, imaginative, intuitive process Job engages, which it is those things, but it looks like him wailing and lamenting at first, and then throughout. His lament is part of falling into transcendent mind. That's what I would say.
Right.
Using Jordan Hall's category. So what do we have? And then we have Job in transcendent mind, sort of encountering the non-dualism of it all, where it freaks him out because he's like, God does this both to the righteous and the unrighteous. It's all the same. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So he's seeing this picture. So Job's in transcendent mind. And then what is God doing then? Because God, I would argue, is outside of transcendent mind, and he's outside the paradigmatic, of course, but he's also involved in those. So it's not like he's not totally separate. He's like in those, and then, but what does he do at the end? And I don't know what to call it, so I'll just call it Paul. I'll just call it the mind of nature for now. Maybe even just the wisdom of God is how I've talked about it before. This is something beyond both those things.
What about, sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but what about this?
The mind of Christ. It's brilliant. So what is that's beyond both those conceptions? And it's whatever God is doing. And it seems to be something that's like built in foundationally in reality, because the transcendent mind, as Jordan Hall's talking about it, seems to be something like common to our humanity and our own spirit, our own souls. So intuition, imagination, our sense of beauty and awe and wonder, our fear, our worship, our sorrow, those things seem to be a part of it, and they're very much connected to. Well, here, I don't know if this is true either, but like Job makes a case for justice in that mode, and I think justice is one of those things that we feel deeply that we're actually supposed to be like working out in the world, and that God calls us to work out in the world. But if we try to judge God based on those categories, then we end up sort of overstepping the bounds. And so there's something sort of like foundational in nature that Job encounters. And this is like well, I don't even know how to describe it right. Like whatever it is, it comforts him and then eases his thing, and then he's able to move on, and then the new paradigm starts where he becomes the mediator. He ends up praying for the friends. They bring the sacrifice, and everyone's gathered into the house of Job, and then all of that happens, which is like a new beginning. It's a beginning like the other beginning, but it's at a higher state. So this is the spiral dynamic stuff that we talk about,
dude. Yes, this is like so many things, but this reminds me of that verse that I sent to you. This is not it.
Yeah, just read that because it goes exactly along with this.
This I'll read the 1 Corinthians one, but it's also related to the verse that I sent you, which is so amazing. That was the verse from our liturgy, the epistle reading from this Sunday's liturgy. So this is from Galatians 6, but it's just like, and this is the same thing. That's 1 Corinthians. Paul says this over and over in 1 Corinthians. But God forbid that I should boast except in the cross of our Lord Jesus Christ, by whom the world has been crucified to me, and I to the world. For in Christ Jesus neither circumcision nor uncircumcision avails anything, but a new creation. That's just what you just said.
Yeah, yeah.
And so like that's all that matters is the new creation. And then like I was having this conversation with a bunch of friends, and I try to, like, I don't want to sound like condescending or pedantic, but like this is what Paul says over and over in 1 Corinthians. The worldly mind, the perishing mind, can't comprehend this. You have no idea what I'm talking about, and it's like that. Because, and I think it's related because I was talking about some of this stuff, and like what is a Christian, and they just keep saying, they were like, Luke, it's like you make these categories so broad as to be meaningless, and I'm like, well, yeah, kind of, but also not, because and it makes me think of that. So they were saying, like, this guy quoted to me, and he said, when I say God, I say less than God, or the Tao that can be named is not the Tao. And I said, yes, except in Christianity, because of the incarnation. And then he said, what do you mean by this? And I mean, it's like what I was telling you, is that it's what Jordan Daniel Wood is trying to talk about in his Christologic. So the way he summarizes it, and what he says is his book, The Whole Mystery of Christ, is about this. Maximus Ambiguum 722. That the Word of God, very God, wills always and in all things to actualize the mystery of his incarnation. And what that means is that it's not just the abstraction of the Tao that can be named, but like, so God is outside of a definition, but it's like, but he's also inside it. And God is life, but he's also found in death, because Christ redeemed death in the harrowing of hell. And like Jason has been saying in this, like he said in our first conversation, I think it's Psalm 139, where do I go to escape your presence? If I ascend to the heights, I'm there. If you go to the depths of Sheol, you're there. You can't, but it's not this in theory. It's this in actuality. It's that in everything, in God, the contradiction, the darkness is not darkness to you. Contradiction is not contradiction to you. This is why the logisticians are never going to comprehend the kingdom of God. I mean, you're just not going to be able to. And this probably sounds like theological Kamala Harris, but I can't help that.
No, I'm tracking with you. I'm having like what if at the end of the book of Job, the thing is that it's the relation between Job and God that ends up being the thing that the thing behind the thing that's greater than the transcendent mind. It's the
Well, let's
the relation between man and God. It is because there's a way in which you're like, what the question is, what's the wisdom of God? And then you could almost say that Job is the wisdom of God.
Yes.
And
the ostrich is the wisdom of God.
Right, in her foolishness.
Yeah.
Right.
Speaking of which, I love 1 Corinthians. Can we just read 1 Corinthians 2?
Yeah, so I mean, when you were talking about the incarnation, like that was like I was seeing stars or something.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Do you care if I read this?
No,
okay.
I might take off in like 2 minutes.
Okay, I'm gonna read this and put out the link, and then my son is also home for lunch, apparently. He's so big, he just comes home for lunch. Okay, I'm gonna read this. When I came to you, brothers, announcing the testimony of God to you, I did not come with brilliance of speech or wisdom. Hi, T-Grog! For I didn't think it was a good idea to know anything among you except Jesus Christ and him crucified. I came to you in weakness, in fear, and in much trembling. My speech and my proclamation were not with persuasive words of wisdom, but with a powerful demonstration by the Spirit, so that your faith might not be based on men's wisdom, but on God's power. However, we do speak a wisdom among the mature, but not a wisdom of this age, or the rulers of this age who are coming to nothing. On the contrary, we speak God's hidden wisdom in a mystery, a wisdom God predestined before the ages for our glory. None of the rulers of this age knew the wisdom, for if they had known it, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. But as it is written, what eye did not see and ear did not hear, and what never entered the human mind, God prepared for those who love him. Now God has revealed these things to us by the Spirit, for the Spirit searches everything, even the depths of God. For who among men knows the thoughts of a man except the spirit of the man that is within him? In the same way, no one knows the thoughts of God except the Spirit of God. Now we have not received the spirit of the world, but the Spirit who comes from God, so that we may understand what has been freely given to us by God. We also speak these things not in words taught by human wisdom, but in things taught by the Spirit, explaining spiritual things to spiritual people. I could just hear T. Grog just being like, but the believer does not welcome what comes from God's Spirit, because it is foolishness to him. He is not able to understand it, since it is evaluated spiritually. The spiritual person, however, can evaluate everything, yet he himself cannot be evaluated by anyone. For who has known the Lord's mind that he may instruct him? But we have the mind of Christ. And what I thought of this when I was on my run this morning. But it was this. I've started thinking in tweets again. But it was like, who is gonna make clean what God has said is unclean? I am. All things are holy to those who are holy. There is no distinction. There's neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, male nor female. I mean, it's a demolishment of all category, but not. It is and is not a demolishment of all category. There's a thing behind the thing behind the thing.
Yeah.
Did I put the link in?
You did.
Okay.
Everyone's intimidated by the glory that's happening in this live stream.
Oh no. I know,
Dude,
Jason.
I have to go, but that's so excellent. Like how you put that together. That was so good.
Well, we've known each other for how long, and it feels like I feel like I'm never saying anything new.
I know, right? Like my first conversation with Paul was about Job.
Yeah.
And here I am still talking about Job.
It's like there's an infinite depth in all things. You know, we are scared of link.
We're scared of the link.
No way. Is Yon God coming to North Estuary? Yon God, are you coming?
See, I'm not gonna recognize anyone. I'm gonna be like, because a lot of these people I've never seen their faces, and I just know their screen names.
Yeah, isn't that that's I don't know.
Like,
I'm so
here's Mike.
excited.
His screen name is, I don't know.
Who? Yon God?
I don't know whoever.
Oh.
It'll just be some. But I'll be there in Olympia, flying out on Thursday.
Jess and I are gonna be there. It's gonna be fun. And who else is gonna be there? Jeremy's gonna be there. Jesse, you're gonna be there, correct? This man is gonna be here. He's gonna be there.
I'll be there. Officially. You know.
Okay, nice. I gotta go.
Okay, see you, bub.
All right,
tag out. Tag in.
See you, Jess.
Bye, Bubba. I like the term Bubba. I grew up, my dad used to call me Bubba. Sometimes me and all my brothers. You ever get called Bubba, Alan?
No,
it's not a New York thing.
Bubba is not. I think that's another thing that Forrest Gump stole from us. You know, Forrest Gump took away that name. But as a weight challenged little kid named Alan, I did not like being called Big Al. So,
hey, Big Al.
Hey, Big Al. Hey, it's Big Al, dude. It's so feminine, but I wanted.
Shut the hell up.
I wanted to. Yeah, and then they get you too because they're like, "Oh, Big Al, we got some chocolate chip cookies," and you're gonna eat them anyway. You know.
Yeah.
So you can't.
Sad eating is so hard.
The stereotypes are true, but that doesn't make them hurt any less.
Yeah, I was a thick boy.
A little proud.
I'm still a thick boy, but I'm not as chubby as I used to be. I was always chubby. I've probably said this before, but at one point I remember just being like, why is my brother's pants always like, because we used to have rustler pants. I don't know if you're familiar with rustlers. You didn't grow up in South Dakota like me. But I would always have like, he would wear like 12 slim, and I'd be like, why am I 14 What was the term?
Husky.
Huh. Yeah, I think that's what it was. And I'm just like, damn it. I just be like, why am I so big? Eating like a bear claw. Chad, what's up? Are you just here to hang, or are you? Jeremy, wow, flex. Jeremy used to be skinny.
What's up? I don't know how my reception is.
Not great. Oh, shoot. So, what do you have? Do you have anything to say about non-duality, Alan?
Oh yeah, I did see your non-duality video yesterday. I couldn't catch what you were doing today, but I understand that, like, not breaking down into components and, you know, looking for ways to not, I like I'm sure the phrase of, like, God is, or Jesus is fully man and fully God, and that just becomes this, like, there's no point into breaking down into, like, well, the human side of him ate this sandwich, but the God side of him healed this person. And I see some practical application of, like, it makes me laugh of, like, I mean, we were just talking about this with art of, like, this is Christian art. It's just like, oh, well, what makes it Christian? Oh, it's covered in crosses and Bible verses. It's like, well, those are just signals of Christianity. That's just like, you're just signaling Christianity. That's not the thing itself. You're breaking it down into a sign of the thing, a pointer towards the thing, but not actually the thing itself. I guess, like, the non-duality, is it trying to get us to point away from, or to move back, take a step back from, oh, I'm doing this to accomplish X or Y, but really we aren't I guess that's the, like, how do you really engage with it on a daily basis of, like, you're not actually doing what you think you're doing, is what I think. But yeah, the question's for you, not to answer, not for me.
All right, this to me is Christian art. God, I love this guy. This is one of those guys I'd love to meet in real life, Makoto Fujimura. So, Makoto, if you are watching, which you're probably not, or if someone who knows him is watching, hook me up. I used to be like an acquaintance. We used to follow each other on Twitter back in the day. But A Leaf by Niggle? Look at that. I didn't know he had this one. So he does this, I forget what it's called. I'd have to go look it up, and I couldn't even say it if I could. But he has, I should just do a stream on my love of Makoto Fujimura. But he is, well, Japanese American. He's ethnically Japanese. And I think he predominantly grew up in the U.S., I think. But his dad was a friend of, who's the... God, why am I blanking? But his dad knew Shizuko Endo, because I love Silence, the movie Silence, and the book Silence. And so he was actually consulted about the film and knows who directed it. What the hell's his name?
Martin Scorsese?
Yeah, so he knows Scorsese, and he's just fantastic. He does this super old, it's a centuries old Japanese art technique where you pulverize these metallic ores, and then you layer them over and over and over, and they have all like, I think you can't even really appreciate it on a screen, because, like, you have to see it in real life to see all the different textures and things. Anyhow, I love it. And I know, Jesse, long time no get in here, guy. And Jason, what do you have to say about non-duality, my friend?
I don't know. I was just hopping on to say hi because I feel like
hey,
I never
buddy.
get to talk to you anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
but I mean, there's always stuff to say. I guess I think it's your topic. Like, when I listened to that video of you and Jess, I was like, man, Luke is just in the zone here.
This is my... Yeah,
I was trying to describe it to one of the roommates here yesterday, actually, because I was talking about you, and I was saying you just like that criticism you often get where people will say you're talking out of two sides of your mouth or you don't make sense. And I'm like, Luke just sees on a higher level, and it's like natural for him to where it's like when you point at something and say this is a truck or something, that automatically includes everything that's not a truck behind it and the interrelatedness of everything. And so it's like you just see that, and so it's kind of like when you're saying this is a truck or this is not a truck, it's like saying the same thing almost. And it's like it's hard for me to describe exactly, but it's more immediate to you. But
It's including it's including everything else. Like you said it brilliantly. I was going to highlight these comments earlier, but when you were talking about the monad illustration or the circle, you know what I'm talking
yeah,
about?
yeah, that was
Like,
actually my cousin John. We were talking about that once because I went on this like really long fast. Because and then I started really, it was the weirdest thing. Like I started thinking in shapes. I don't know how to describe it. And I was literally like sacred geometries type stuff, and which was completely unfamiliar to me at the time. Like I had no
mm,
idea what it was. And that's when I started to understand the Trinity and then like how it actually works and the unity of multiplicity. And then my cousin John just kind of drew a thing and he was like, well, you see, when you keep adding dots to this, you keep adding monads, eventually it becomes a circle in a whole
mm-hmm.
globe. And then it's just one monad again, and all is one. It's just like another dot on the page. Yeah. And it was like a beautiful, simple illustration. And that reminded me of what was it Jordan Hall, the video clip you played when he was talking about the drum beat, and you keep
Mm-hmm.
adding more and more and more and more, then it just becomes this like this one thing. It all blends together. Yeah. And that's what I think, yeah, the Trinity is like John 17. Jesus says, we'll all be one as he is one. And it's like it's not like people just get hung up on the number three. And it's like it's not, it's just stop counting. Or keep
Stop.
counting. Keep counting.
Yeah.
What if you yeah. Just count to infinity, then then you got it. But also, hi Alan. I don't think we've ever spoken in person before. I've seen you before. And hi Jesse. I
Hey, Jason.
haven't met you yet.
No,
It's good to see you.
no. Are you coming to the conference?
I'm not coming. I don't. First of all, I don't have the money. I was looked at the ticket price. I was like, hey. And then but I thought maybe I could go there and just like meet people and not necessarily attend, but I don't think I'll have the time either.
You could
Yeah.
I could just like say you're my significant other. Nate will let you in. It's fine.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Are you going, Jesse?
Yeah, I am. It's not too far from me. I'm just across the border in BC, so I'm about like 3 hours away by car. So kind of
Oh,
worked out
cool.
well. Yeah.
Nice.
So
That's
yeah, and I hardly ever hop on these streams. Luke, I always catch all your streams, but you do them so early. I wake up and I see, oh, geez, Luke's been streaming for 2 hours, so it's always on replay. So I never hop on, but.
Well, you're West Coast. Part of it for me is the best time for me to do it. Like I'm right now, I feel uh, like a poor father because my son is sitting here, come home from school, and I'm just like on a computer ignoring him. This is my work. I'm pursuing the work of the people. And
It's the work of the spirit.
that's right. But so usually when I do it, I'm trying to do it before they wake up. I'm more of an early morning person, but that's hard for the West Coast.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you could come on this because like
Yeah.
you came on to a live stream, I don't know, a number of months ago, and then I
Months
see
ago,
you in the
yeah.
comments every once
Yeah,
in a
well,
while.
I've
but-
been. I mean, I've been around since that first video Paul posted about Peterson back in the day, but more just kind of. Well, back in the day, it wasn't live streams and whatnot. But yeah, I just hadn't really hopped on the streams a whole lot. But I've been, especially kind of with the conference coming up, and I've been really looking forward to actually like meeting these people that. Well, I never participate, so you guys don't meet. But I feel like, oh, Luke, I've been watching you for a long time, and Alan, you showed up a little while ago, and like all these different things, and so that'll be fun. But anyway, I've been trying to at least make an effort to comment here and there, so somebody might recognize my name or something when we all get together this weekend. So
I feel like it's gonna be epic. So I went to Thunder Bay, and that was fantastic. And I'm going with there's 3 of my local buddies here that are part of my local Minneapolis estuary are coming to this trip.
Cool.
And
Sweet.
so that'll be cool. And we're all staying together, so that'll just be a lot of hanging out time, which will be great. I'm excited to meet a lot of the people. A lot of the speakers are pretty fantastic, but I have to hug my
It's
son
more
just
about
a second.
to me. I'm more excited about just kind of like interacting with the TLCers. Like it's cool that Paul will be there, or Ray, for these different people, and that's cool. But it's equally as I'm at least equally looking forward to just shaking hands and with all the usuals.
Dude, I'm more excited about that. I've said that a lot of
Totally.
times. It's
Yeah.
probably like you guys. I'm more excited to meet you guys than I am other people. Like Chris Green is maybe close because I have a crush on Chris
Yeah,
Green.
you got a
He's
man
like-
crush on Chris Green these days.
Oh my gosh, that guy is so
You haven't
wonderful.
met him yet.
Well, that's probably.
Move over Jordan Daniel Wood or what?
So the thing is, so Jordan Daniel Wood, to me, and sorry, Jordan, if you hear this, I love you, and I'm sure Nate has said you're fantastic in real life too. Jordan Daniel Wood's he's too academic for me. Like, he's probably not in real life, but I don't have a problem with academia, and he's like one of those guys. And I've put Nathan Jacobs, like I've said this about Nathan Jacobs before. It's the whole, like, you can be right and be wrong, or be wrong and be right. I think Jordan Daniel Wood's probably right. I probably agree with him on paper 99.9% of everything he says. But I think the mode that I would advocate for of knowing people is this kind of TLC mode, which is not like it's not ideas, but it's personal.
There's something to that personalist knowing thing that you always talk about that I feel like is right, and and it reminds me of, maybe this gets into nominalism, although if you asked me to define that, I don't know if I'd be able to. But when back in the day, Paul would use the line PVK, language is representation, and it's like there's a thing that's out there, and we're all sort of pointing at it, and maybe we're using different words, and we're articulating it differently, or from our perspective, we're perceiving things differently. And Sam's the classic example of the Unitarian thing, and Luke, I think you, like, for some reason, I kind of, even though all the words are different, I kind of just feel like we're all pointing at, like we all agree, but the words are all different. You know what I mean?
I
Like,
completely
Sam's stuff,
agree.
I don't have any problem with it. Although if
Yep.
I articulated it to anybody at my church and brought him up, they would be aghast at such a thing. But yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I was describing that to someone recently, this same person that I was referencing earlier, this local friend, who no longer identifies as being a Christian, and we're having these, one of the perennial debates of what is a Christian, and I keep trying to argue him, like, a Christian is not primarily rooted in self-identity, two ideas. To me, it's someone who acts like Jesus Christ, and what I mean that is someone who, it's the incarnation of the Zitzum, is what I would say. Sorry, Jews, if that's insulting.
Go, don't finish your thought. Sorry.
Yeah, and so it's loving your enemies and point to the point of death. It's Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. If you do that, you are Christ. Like, your self-identity is like, I don't forefront that. Like, it doesn't even matter to me. If you die for your enemies, if you sacrifice yourself for your enemies out of love, or you're to me, it's not even definitionally you're a Christian. Actually, you're a Christian.
Yeah.
Again, because if you say, like, definitionally what is a Christian, you're still trapped in propositional tyranny. Stop trying to root everything in definitions.
And so I was talking about this yesterday, actually, after that stream I tried to do, and then listening back to it, and I was talking about it with Rebecca, but I was just saying how I've been in that space for 2 years now, where I don't even know, feels like I'm constantly back and forth, like, do I call myself a Christian? Do I not? Because, like, when it comes to, like, the ideas you're talking about, that kind of just creates tribalism, like you mentioned. And then, but I don't necessarily get to make the rules if I'm a part of the tribe, And so there's this weird point in and Cal mentioned to me a long time ago, you get to this place where it feels like you almost have to leave Christianity to follow Christ. And I don't know what to do with that. And it's like, I'm okay with it. Like, it doesn't bother me, but it's just like, if I'm trying to be as honest as possible, there feels like there's a dishonesty when I would say I'm Christian, but I know like I think of all these things completely different from most Christian tribal standards or something like that. And it's not like I've had any Christians be rude or anything or say like they won't implicitly say you're not Christian or something, but you might present an idea and they'd be like, well, that's not Christian or something like that. So I haven't like had any bad encounters with that or anything. And there's still a way I feel included in it. But there's on the one hand, it's like you want to be as Christ-like as possible. And then on the other hand, it's like I still want to be humble about, I mean, I don't get to make the rules or define Christianity. It's kind of a cultural community thing as well. Kind of like
So
I'm gonna say I'm not Catholic. Like I've been interested in joining Catholicism, but I'm not Catholic yet. And so
so
kind of
I want to say something to that because I'm very excited about this because I had this realization recently, or to me at least, and so I want to share it. And then I want to shut up enough to let David and Mark talk, but or Alan, because he was talking about Kierkegaard. So like my friend, the same guy that I'm talking about, which I'll just have to share him with this with him because I'm usually he's just like, can you try to condense it more than 2 hours? And I was like, no. But so one of the things we're talking about, because he's also a lover of Peter Rollins, and something Peter Rollins does is this thing called atheism for Lent, which is very connected to what you're talking about, which is it's almost like dying, which is a practice of not practicing Christianity out of solidarity for atheists, people who have deconstructed that sort of thing. And he was trying to challenge me because we were talking about this idea of thinking and what it means to think. And it's basically it's like connect to that last live stream of F. Scott Fitzgerald of the measure of a first-rate intelligence is to be able to hold two opposed ideas in your mind at the same time and not go crazy, essentially. Or it's like what I was saying is like you have to be able to imagine the opposite of the idea that you hold being true before you can even truly evaluate it. If you can't even imagine it being true, you're not even, I would argue, not even thinking. And so my buddy then challenged me, and he's saying like, so then apply that to yourself. Can you imagine not being a Christian? And I said to him, no. The only way that I could do that propositionally. I could do that like liturgically. I could do an atheism for Lent thing, and I could pursue it that way. But if what I'm talking about is true, that being a Christian means acting like Christ in the world, can I imagine being in the world in a way that doesn't have as its highest value loving and forgiving your enemies? I don't think I can.
yeah.
I don't think I'm capable of
I
doing
mean, you
that.
could, but it would well, it's good you're not capable because I mean, I feel like you could, but it would.
I mean, what would that even look like?
But
What would that even look like? Killing my enemies?
there was so one of the guys here I met in Akente, I met him at the Orthodox Church here, and he said something that really stuck with me. He was talking about just the way of God and pursuing God, and he said he did the way he said it too. He was like, "You poor creature, you're on the path to non-existence," and I think that's what you're talking about. If you go the other way, I can imagine it, but I think you're becoming so insular and focused on yourself, like, and you just become more and more secluded and isolated, that is the path to non-existence. Like you think it's kind of the path to existence because it's you, it's about you, it's all about you, and but it becomes so small. Your world just keeps increasingly getting smaller until it's like there's nothing at all. And I think that's the opposite of what you're talking about. And I can imagine it. It's just terrifying. And I think you would just cease to be. And I guess
But
it
I
would be
don't know
killing
that
your
I can
enemies, but
do
it would
it.
also be killing your enemies would lead to killing your friends, would lead to killing your family because you just, yeah, I'm good. I'm glad you can't. I don't think I could either at this point. Maybe, I don't know. It's terrifying, but yeah, I can imagine it though. But sorry. All right. I'm going to stop talking so Mark and David can say stuff. Or Alan.
Gentlemen,
Hello.
Hi.
I just came to see Jason's knees.
Jason is one of those like just
Whoever else wants to get on this live stream, I'm trying to draw people in right now with my name.
Jason, don't I think you'll actually be complimented by this. You're like in the realm of you're like rock star handsome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You know
How
what
would
I
I
mean?
not be complimented by that? That sounds like a
Yeah.
compliment.
Jason,
Well, I mean, but you know-
I have a question. Maybe this is the wrong place to ask it, but you know what? I'm just going to go anyway because you're my friend. If you don't want to talk about it, we can talk about it some other time. Have you done drugs?
Yes, I've weirdly enough, I've never been like addicted to drugs because the one drug I really, really enjoyed was Adderall, and I was like, I should not touch this ever again, or never do coke. I've never done.
This
coke
is
before.
actually about that question, the crack in the pavement.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Yeah.
the reason why I was asking is actually one of the things I really appreciate you, Jason, is I think you know scripture remarkably well, and you have symbolic thinking without having to get there through accidentally doing too many mushrooms, right?
Well,
and so
honestly, the symbolic thinking I think really came from intense, at least 1 or 2 years of really intense fasting, which I would liken to a psychedelic experience. Yeah, so
right.
in a lot
Yes,
of ways.
but you went the way that actually requires discipline.
Mhm.
That's Grim Grizz actually talks about this a whole bunch, that he thinks that the reason why so many people are obsessed with psychedelics is it's because you could have the mystical experience without discipline. Wouldn't that be great if instead of having to live like a monastic and fast regularly and all this stuff, if you could just take a pill?
Yeah, it reminds me of when Jordan Peterson said once, he said, beware of wisdom that you don't earn, or something like that.
Quoting Jung, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, it's true. That's like Jason is one of those guys where I don't know. I mean, to me, it's just like I will take. This is probably hyperbolic, but like you could give me. People talk about all these people like Eric Weinstein and blah 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 blah, and I'm just like, give me 100 Eric Weinsteins for one Jason. I wouldn't trade him. Give me Jason all day.
Thank you. Please compliment me some more. I'm enjoying it.
I would trade Eric Weinstein for a Twinkie.
Not a fan, are we?
A little too doom and
But
gloom.
Jason's worth many more Twinkies.
Your life is worth many Twinkies.
There's a joke you're not intending within that, and you know what? I'm fine with it. We'll move on.
Interestingly, Tom, he is a musician. He has a band. Plug your band.
The band is Bearhound, all one word. Not naked, not bear like naked, but bear like the animal. Hound.
Bearhound.
Yeah. Yep. So go check it out, and then make us famous, so I don't have to start working at the job anymore. Can just do drugs and look cool.
He's got to
Why
afford all that
Adderall, by the
fasting.
way? Was Adderall prescribed or acquired?
Oh my gosh, no. No. I don't think I've ever been prescribed anything because I don't like doctors, so I never go. But it was
Yeah.
it's just
You seem
college.
more like the shaman type.
It was just college. And then I think one time Oxycontin, because that was popular at the time, and I hated that, so I never took that again. But I think one of my friends at the time in college took it when his grandmother died. So
No.
Then
I
he
get a
distributed
sense for
them
your
on his friends.
personality. If you do drugs, you want to do them so that you can write a novel, not
Yes.
so that you can have a good night's sleep. That's,
Yeah.
Jason has also written a novel.
That's true. I guess I've done other things.
This conversation reminds me of a scene out of Parks and Rec. Anybody watch
scene?
Parks and Rec back in the day?
Yes, it's been a while though.
Leslie asked John Ralphio, "Why are you like this?" Pills, baby. It's a good line. I don't deliver it well, but it's a good line.
I really liked you specifically delivering that line.
Well,
Makes it better.
I was going to talk about non-duality, but I'm out of time. But I
What?
do think,
No,
yeah,
say-
I got to run.
Say
But
something
the,
about non-duality. No one will interrupt you. Go.
Well, really quickly though, I think that if there is anything to non-duality, if it's true, then it's definitely all or nothing. Everybody is saved or nobody's saved. It's got to be the whole cosmos, or we're all get flushed down the toilet, in the incinerator, whatever you want to call it, whatever, pick your metaphor. But you cannot have any sort of saved unsaved business happen ultimately if it's all non-dual.
Mhm.
I just doesn't that dog won't hunt if it's non-dual. If it's the question is where does duality come from if it is all non-dual? And then is it more of a Gnostic thing that we're living in an illusion, or it's all
Ooh.
dukkha or samsara in Buddhism, and then we got to wake up out of it. So we wake up into reality. That would be the Buddhist framework, and probably real similar. I'm less familiar with Gnosticism, but it's the same kind of framing. So you got to pick or choose. Heaven and hell are the same thing in non-duality.
Mhm. Yep.
Well, isn't
This
that
is
the whole
nirvana
idea
and
that
samsara are the same thing. Say what, guys?
isn't that that idea that for the unbeliever, or whatever language we want to use, like have it the almost like the truth, the brightness of heaven is like burning, right? And so would that be the heaven and hell are the
Yeah,
same
but
thing
you could even
kind of thing?
say the believer needs the non-believer. I mean, just as Jesus needs the Samaritan auxiliary to drive the nails into the cross. There's no resurrection without the cross, and there's no cross without the auxiliaries who were probably Samaritan, according to Tom Holland, who hammered in the nails through his wrists and feet.
Well,
Right?
and equally,
I mean,
we needed Judas too, right? Like,
exactly. It's all the
wasn't
same.
he
Yep.
an essential role? Like, we don't want Judas to not exist.
Well, and the early Christians saw that, right? Isn't there a Gospel of Judas? Supposedly.
Sounds familiar.
I don't know a ton about it, but this is so. I'm just gonna, Jason. I'm gonna cue you up. Here comes a softball, but this is like I've been thinking a lot more of. So this is another conversation me and my local buddy were having, but he was talking about salvation and damnation and all those things, and like what does salvation mean? And essentially, to me, salvation is just the fullness of being, which also includes an embrace of your death, because obviously Jesus. And so it's like this, that is the difficulty with it. And if what that means is, I posted this on Twitter the other day, but I think it's from Luke 6, the measure that you use, it will be measured to you. If you forgive others their sins, your heavenly Father will forgive you. If you do not forgive others their sins, your heavenly Father will not forgive you. I think what salvation means is learning to forgive your enemies. And if you don't have enemies, you can't learn how to forgive them. You can't learn how to love. And this is actually related to a conversation that Hezi and I were talking about. Salvation is forgiveness. It's learning to be a forgiver. But I think that's the mystery, is that we have to learn that. This is like, Hezi was telling me is it the parable of the 10 martyrs? Hezi, you still here? But in that, it was about, I'm not going to be able to recap it well. Hezi, get in here. But he was talking about how things into which angels long to look. There was some angel that was saying to God, like, stop this. And God's response to that was silence. God told the angel to be silent because he's also observing this. He's observing man respond to this scenario, to Job. It's the story of Job fractally laid out to every human being in the world. And from a Christian perspective, fully lived out in Jesus Christ.
Okay, but can we? And there might be some kind of an answer where the answer is yes. Can we punish in a just way while also being forgiving?
Yes, that's the burning bush.
Right?
Like we talked
Like,
about.
because punishment is necessary, and it's necessary for redemption even. right? Is I think it's Peter. I think it's both Peter and Paul. Jason, I was talking to you about this yesterday. Is that when we're suffering, the apostles put it in one of two ways. They say, maybe you're doing it maybe it's because you did something wrong, in which case that's good. Because if you're being punished for something you did wrong, then that's good. This is going to teach you. And if it's for something you didn't do, then that's also good, because that is making you a disciplined person. You're the kind of person who can endure considerably more, right?
Yeah.
How do we integrate that fully? Because the problem, I think, Luke, a lot of people are going to have with what you're saying is, could we, if we have that perspective, then do we say no one, I'm going to use Jason's example, no one gets the death penalty? Because Jason's like, no, I think you could fully forgive someone and give them the death penalty. It's like, really? What's his name? The son of Sam killer. There's an interview where he's being interviewed by the Focus on the Family guy, and the lights flicker while he's in the interview. Bye, Mark. The lights flicker while he's in the interview, and the guy goes, yeah, that's them testing the chair, because it's the day before he's going to get the electric chair. And he actually says, no, I should be put to death. They should give me the chair without a doubt. It's not even debated.
Well, that's the thing. The judgment isn't infinitely deep, then neither is the forgiveness. So that's why I'm always pushing the death penalty thing. Because, I mean, it's right there in Genesis at the beginning. Eat of this fruit and you will die. So you have death. You have to have death upon death upon death. It's like for the forgiveness to actually meet it there. And, I mean, otherwise, why, what it talks about dying all the time or dying daily. And like we were talking about last night, David, like there's little aspects of forgiveness where any truth you hold to, any idea you have, any law that you have, any rule, any tribalism, any structure is a part of your own personal identity. So anyone that you know that misses that mark, it's going to cost you. You're going to have to sacrifice a piece of your own identity to stay in relationship with that person. So it's all
ultimately, and we were talking about this, and I'd love for Hezi to jump on and explain why I'm going too far, is that within Judaism, God creates the world by contracting himself. There needs to be part of, like, God as he is, without the world would be so infinite that he can't interact with the world. So he must create some kind of contraction within himself in order to interact with that bit. And within Christianity, the language that we use is the lamb sacrifice before what is it? The lamb
the foundation of the world.
Foundations of the world. That's the term I was looking for.
And
I think so. The idea that, like, in order for me to talk to someone, I have to give them space. So I have to die a little to myself to let them in. In order to forgive them, I must die a little to myself. In order for God to create the world, he must die a little to himself. Right? That this notion of sacrifice is in every single interaction we're having. Even right now, you guys being gracious to me to give me a second to speak is you guys sacrificing, dying to yourself.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to try to say. Is it's relatively simple, but there's a spectrum. It's your own children. You have to allow them. If you will not withdraw, you're a totalitarian father, and they won't actually become who they're supposed to be.
Yeah, and you do that before you even have them, or at least that's the proper, I think, stance to have. I think that's what Jake was trying to get at when I was trying to push the conversation there yesterday, talking to him, like when John the Baptist says, "He who comes after me was preferred before me, for he was before me," because it's before the beginning, the lamb slain before the foundation of the world. Or what is there before you have the child? It's like this, no matter what, beginning to end, this one thing is like, I'm gonna love him. Like, it's like no matter what. And that's why I think, and I don't know if forgiveness is the right word. That's the word I always use, but I think people usually think I'm talking about flattery or something. But it's like this forgiveness that's just kind of laid as a foundation. Like this is the creation that's
I
gonna come
think
into the
grace
world.
might be a good word because they'll talk about someone as being very gracious, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they're forgiving. It might just mean making room in a conversation. That's a gracious
Yeah.
person.
Or Hesed. Yeah. But
I
yeah,
think this
so
is a
back to
good comment too.
when
Again,
you're
this is
talking
why
about
we know that God is a redhead. I think it's very important to remember.
I think in the talking about the judgment thing too, though, that's what I said. And I was talking to you last night, David, when I said that's the burning bush, because there's the if you're gonna even think about God being good or true or beautiful and think about him being infinite, it's like then think about you want to be like him or even know him. It's like you have to kind of you have this calling, this thing that's always judging you. You're always pursuing it forever because it's infinitely good. And so there's always this judgment that's weirdly kind of condemning you and kind of calling you higher, but it's also advocating for you. And so it's also forgiving you. It's truth on the mercy. It's the same thing. And so God's jealousy is his fire. It's hell, heaven being the same thing as hell. It's all the same. It's a burning bush. That's not consumed. It's you're always on fire, always burn up with God's love, but you're not consumed by it. And that's heaven being hell. That's all those dualities, I think, pulled into one thing, one image or something like that.
Have you guys heard the song?
You muted.
What is it?
Oh,
It's Me Without You. The Beetle King on a Coconut Estate. Have you guys heard this song?
no, but quote it. Me Without You is amazing.
So it's about us trying to understand God, but it does so by from the perspective of beetles trying to understand fire. Does this sound at all familiar to anyone?
No, but to go through it because everybody needs to listen to Me Without You because they have amazing.
Okay. Can I read you guys the lyrics to a song? Is that all right?
Yeah, do
I
it.
was going to do it. Okay. As the moon rose and the hour grew late, the day help on a coconut estate raked up the dried leaves that fell dead from the trees, they burned in a pile by the lake. The Beetle King summoned his men, and from the top of a rhododendron stem, calling all volunteers who can carry it back here, the great mystery that's lit once again. One beetle emerged from the crowd in a fashionable abdomen shroud. I'm a professor, you see. That's no mystery to me. I'll be back soon, successful and proud. But when the beetle professor returned, he crawled on all six as his wings had been burned. And he described to the finest detail all he learned, but there was neither a light nor a heat in his word. The deeply dissatisfied king climbed the same stem to announce the same thing, but in his second appeal sought to sweeten the deal with a silver parashod ring. The lieutenant stepped out from the line as he lassoed his thorax with twine, thinking I'm stronger and braver. I'll earn the king's favor, and one day all he has will be mine. But for all the lieutenant's conceit, he too returned singed and admitting defeat. I had no choice, please believe, but retreat. It was bright as the sun, but with 10 times the heat. It cracked like the thunder and bloodshot my eyes. Though smothered with sticks, it advanced undeterred. As it carelessly cast an ash cloud to the sky, my lord, like a flock of dark wrenching birds. The Beetle King slammed down his fists. Why, your flowery description is no better than his. We sent for the great light, and you bring us this? We didn't ask what it seemed like. We asked what it is. Oh, his majesty, and then his majesty, at last, his hour had drawn nigh. The elegant queen took her leave from his side, and without understanding, without asking why, gathered their kids to come bid their goodbyes. The father explained, you've been somewhat deceived. We've all called me your dad, but your true dad's not me. No, I lay next to your mom and your forms were conceived, but your father is the life within all that you see. He fills up the ponds and he empties the clouds, holds without hands and speaks without sounds, provides us with cow's waste and coconut to eat, giving us one that's nice salt taste, the other as sweet. Sends the black carriage the day death shows his face, thinning our numbers with kindness and grace. And just as the flower and its fragrance are one, so must each of you and his father become. Now distribute my scepter, my crown, and my throne, and all we've called wealth to the poor and alone. And without further hesitation, without looking back home, the king flew headlong into the blazing unknown. And as the smoke curled higher and higher, the troops flying loops around the telephone wires, they said, our beloved's not dead, but his highness instead has been utterly changed into fire. Why not be utterly changed into fire? Why not be utterly changed into fire? There, how was that?
Why not?
But it's the ending though. Let's go and become one with the fire. Like it's horrifying, but kind of beautiful.
Mm-hmm. What you thinking, Alan?
That made me think of Peterson talking about the deadwood and the burning off. Is there some crossover there? Like,
yeah, there's a line that says, speaks of God as the one who sends the black carriage the day death shows its face, thinning our numbers with kindness and grace. Like there's a death, there's the burning up, but then there's like a becoming one with the fire.
that makes me think of Luke's kind of justice-filled universalism in some sense, and I'm just sort of connecting different ideas and the notion of sin as missing the mark. I believe, Lord, help my unbelief. Just getting back to the whole "am I a Christian" thing, or it's like, well, I want to be a follower of Christ, but I don't. This, yeah, there's something there that I'm compelled by something on that universalist notion in the sense that, like, maybe the best that we can do is like sort of kind of try to point ourselves in the right direction, but we're just constantly missing, and so it's like we need to get into the fire eventually to get like all that shit burned off, basically. Like, anyway, that's what that made me think of.
Mm-hmm.
It is
David, what's
becoming
that thing
one
behind
with
you? Sorry.
This thing. Oh, it's a
Yeah.
it's a piece.
I always
of,
wonder what
it's a-
that is behind you.
Oh, it's a piece of art I've been working on for way too long. It's a carving. It's the
Okay.
days of creation. So it'll one day be 7 rings.
Oh, wicked.
So each ring
Oh,
is a different day of creation. So that's
Okay.
that you can see. There's the birds all the way down to the Leviathan. That's in one because that's fish and birds. And then there's Eve coming out the side of Adam.
Dude.
And you can see it's like
my.
thick. It goes in. Each one goes down a layer.
What is that medium? Like you said you're carving? It's some
Yeah.
kind of foam or something, or what is it?
Yeah, so I wanted to get into art, but I had no confidence that I could do art. So I started using a material called foam core, which you can basically get at the dollar store for like it's nothing. It's like styrofoam, kind of a
Okay.
thing in between Bristol board, basically. And then if you paint it, then it looks like wood.
Yeah.
So when you see it,
Sorry,
when
I
you see
totally
it-
derailed the conversation, but
No, that's fine. I'm proud of it. So this is Mud Hut's.
oh my gosh.
What's it called Jonah. I asked her permission to turn it into a carving. So there's Jonah right in there falling in, and you can see how thick it is. Like it's
So are you adding
Good.
multiple layers of that foam to get that extra depth? Is that what's happening?
yeah, exactly. So this is this wave is one layer, then
Okay.
that's another like each one is another layer until you have something like that, which actually pops up when you see it. Yeah, and it looks like this looks like wood to me. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's just painted styrofoam.
Wow, that's cool. That reminds me of the Peterson's kind of logo, I guess now, that art piece that he did forever ago. The image of music or whatever it is.
Yes, it's
Some
3D,
kinda like
and I did it
multi-layered.
as well with. There's the other one. This is Pajot's image of everything, right?
Oh, yeah.
You can see how thick it is.
How long does something like that take you?
Too long. The answer is far too long, and I have no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like each one of these is a different layer, and with my image of Christ, Christ is the top. Like if you look at it this way, he's both the top and the bottom, because he has this the image of the darkness. That's actually the bottom of the image. If you dig all the way in.
Ah,
Yeah,
I see.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, I have to go. My wife just called me.
I gotta go soon too. But
Jason, it was great to see you and your knees.
thanks. Yeah, I gotta get back to work. So, but I like this. Hopefully, this topic will keep going. I like this non-dual topic. There's a lot more I think to explore with it. Or I think I mentioned it in the comments though too, of Christ and Antichrist being the same thing, and I think people are gonna have to reckon with that. I think the Bible kind of clearly points that out on the fact of dying for your enemies and becoming. I could wish myself accursed from Christ. It's like you're going to be becoming the accursed on behalf of someone else. That kind of reminds me of what Hezi said here. One man had to step into the sea of reeds before it split, get in over your head. Like you see Jesus do that while we were yet enemies of the cross. He died for us, and then it kind of tells. I mean, well, it doesn't kind of. It tells you to do the same thing, and then so it's like that. But that measure of love that would say, I am willing to take someone's place in an eternity of hell, and not only your loved ones, but your enemies. And then to get there, I think that's where maybe Christ and Antichrist might come and be two sides of the same coin or something like that. Or even I've been thinking about even like God and Satan too, because like I mentioned before, if God is infinitely good, there's a way he's kind of always your judge. So he's kind of always your accuser. He's kind of always your adversary in some sort of way. But then at the same time, he's your advocate. So he's like always pleading on your behalf and always judging
Well,
you.
we've
And I think
people will
yeah.
make mention of this, that Eve is the helper against Adam. Like you could render it helper against you, where it's like you're going to wrestle and fight, and that's going to be what's good. But what does that mean if we're the bride of Christ? Right? Like, or even Yahweh's bride is Israel, right? For him to be seeking his bride. What does that mean when the bride is the one that's the helper against you?
Yeah, that's super interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I'm out.
Yeah,
I'll
me
see
too.
y'all later.
Okay.
Great meeting you, Jesse. Have
Yeah,
fun
nice to meet some of you
Jesse,
guys.
Alan.
Yeah.
Yeah, good seeing you,
Yeah,
Dave.
All right. See you guys.
Hey, Jason, Jesse.